All right. All righty. This is not ESPN's 30 for 30. However, it is my 98 for 98. The 98 seasons in the history of the New York Football Giants. Going to try to get it done in 98 days. Probably not going to happen, but I will get it done before the beginning of the season starts, which starts September 10th against those Dallas Cowboys. And we're in the 1997 season, which just happened to be the 73rd season in the history of the New York Giants. 73rd season for the history of the Giants. 78th season in the history of the NFL. The NFL started in 1920. Giants started in 1925. Giants are 5 years younger than the NFL is. And this started the Jim Fossil era from 1997 to 2003. Now, it would be a rather successful, little era. Jim Fossil took us to three championship games, 3 playoffs, including the 1997 season. And it took us to a Super Bowl. I mean, one of the most absolutely fantastic, memorable regular season / playoff runs, the Giants have ever had. Just phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. Of course, then they got to the Super Bowl, and it wasn't like the Ravens were, because they beat us 34-7. It was basically their defense was just absolutely incredible. I think the Ravens' offense in that Super Bowl had like 245 yards of offense. I mean, they didn't have much offense, right? It was the defense that won the game for them. But anyway, the 1997 season. So it was, it started a new era. It's always something exciting. He took over for Dan Reeves, who had 2 consecutive losing seasons for the Giants. And, he got fired. So they brought Jim Fossil in. So now, who is Jim Fossil? Where did he come from? Well, I'm glad you asked. He was with the Giants previously. Okay. His coaching career goes all the way back to the WFL, the World Football League, right? He was with the Hawaiians as an assistant coach in 1974. Also, little Trivial Pursuit question here. If you ever get asked, where is it at here? It's here somewhere. Playing career. There we go. Fossil played briefly with the Hawaiians. And basically, that's what their name. It wasn't like the New York Stars, the Philadelphia, I think it was like the Bell or something like that. It was just called, the team was in WFL was called the Hawaiians. Let's see. Fossil played briefly with the Hawaiians of the WFL in 1974 and became an assistant coach during the 1974 WFL season. He left the WFL after the 74 season, but briefly returned when the Hawaiians needed a quarterback late in the 75 season. Now, here's where the Trivial Pursuit question comes in at. He played in the final game of the WFL in the history of the WFL, the World Football League, for the Hawaiians, throwing the last pass in the league's history as the WFL folded 3 days later on October 22nd, 1975. So if you ever get asked that Trivial Pursuit question, they take the card and they're like, who threw the final pass in the history of the World Football League in 1975? You just say, raise your hand. That's Jim Fossil. There you go. He made a lot of stops. I mean, he was, let's see, after the Hawaiians, he went to the Fullerton Junior College in 1974 as their assistant coach, and he was the quarterback and receivers coach of Utah. They went to Weber State, Stanford, the New Orleans Breakers. There you go. How about that name? Of the USFL. They went back to Utah. Then for 2 seasons, he was the offensive coordinator and the quarterback coach for the Giants under the Ray Handley era, right? Then after that, he went to the Broncos as their offensive coordinator. He went to the Raiders as their quarterback coach. Went to the Arizona Cardinals as their offensive coordinator. Then from 1997 to 2003, he was the head coach of the New York Football Giants. And I always thought after the Giants fired him after 2003. They had a very bad season, but a lot of it had to do with injuries as well. But anyway, I always thought if I was a betting man, which I'm not, but if I was a betting man, I would have thought somebody would have hired him as a coach, but he never was hired as a coach ever again. After he left the Giants, after he got fired, he was the Baltimore Ravens. He was an offensive consultant for the Ravens in 2004, and then 2005 and 2006, he was their offensive coordinator. Then he was a head coach, but it was for the Las Vegas Locomotives from 2009 to 2012, the UFL league. And actually, when he was the head coach of the Las Vegas Locomotives, they were a two-time UFL champion in 2009 and 2010. So, but I'm going back, I thought in the NFL, somebody, because he took a team first year, he took them, they had 2 losing seasons. First season, he took them to a 10-5-1 record, won a division into the playoffs, took them to the Super Bowl. Not only that, but they got demolished in the Super Bowl, but they beat the Vikings 41-0 in the championship game. Took the Giants to another playoffs in 2002. So took the team to 3 different playoffs and a Super Bowl appearance. I really thought somebody would have at least giving him another shot, but it never happened. And sadly, unfortunately, he passed away very recently, within about 2 years ago. Jim Fossil died of a heart attack on June 7, 2021 in Las Vegas, Nevada. He was only 71 years old. So such a shame. Nice, real nice guy, real nice guy. And we certainly owe him a little debt of gratitude because he gave us, some exciting times there for the Giants. And a Super Bowl appearance. Unfortunately, his Super Bowl appearance was the only one that we ever lost. But it was an exciting time. It was a breath of fresh air, shall we say? So the 1997 Giants, their preseason, they went. Where did they go? They went 1-3. Not very good. They started off okay. First preseason game was Saturday, August 2nd. They were away. They played the Baltimore Ravens in Baltimore, Maryland, in Memorial Stadium. They won 21-20. Then they would lose their next 3 games. But once again, it's preseason. On Saturday, August 9th, they would play the Jacksonville Jaguars in East Rutherford, and we would lose 38-16 to Tom Coughlin. Then the following week, the Giants were home against the Jets, and the Jets would win 27-17. And the final preseason game, the Giants would go on the road against the Green Bay Packers, and they would play at Camp Randall Stadium. That's somewhere in Madison, Wisconsin. And the Giants would lose 22-17. So they were 1-3 in their preseason games. But once again, just preseason. Now, if you go to their draft, this was the final draft for George Young. Now, he had some, especially the first round selections he had some bad ones. 1991, 1992, 1993, he traded away his first round pick for Dave Brown in the 1992 supplemental draft. We drafted Dave Brown with our first round pick. And he was just pretty much a backup quarterback. 1994, we took Thomas Lewis, a wide receiver. We took Derek Brown, a tight end. I mean, Cedric Jones in 1996. He had some bad first round selections in the early and mid 90s. But this draft here, which would be his final one, he really very good. I got to give him an A on this one. Okay, so his first round selection was Ike Hilliard, a wide receiver. Now, he didn't play his entire career with the Giants, but he was out of Florida. But he had a very long career. He played 12 seasons in the NFL. Well, he was with the Giants from 97 until 2004. It's a shame because, he was still around in 2007 when we won the Super Bowl, but he was with Tampa Bay at the time. But, he had a nice long career, 8 years with the Giants. Very good, solid wide receiver. Very, very good wide receiver. In the second round, he got even better, right? He took Tiki Barber from Virginia. Tiki Barber, who should be in the Hall of Fame from Virginia, right? Tiki Barber played 10 seasons. His whole career was with the New York Giants. Absolutely There were times that guy put the team on his back, and usually the quarterback's supposed to do that, but there were sometimes, especially toward the end of his career, he put the team on his back, and he said, "Guys, we're winning this game." And Tiki was absolutely phenomenal. Just a shame he's not in the Hall of Fame, and just a shame that he didn't play one more season, because if he played one more season, would have been 2007. He would have got himself a Super Bowl ring, which he certainly deserved. Then in the third round, the Giants had 2 picks in the third round. Now, one of them was a compensatory pick because they lost some free agents. Okay, but with their pick, pick number, let's see here. Ooh, where are we at? Pick number 68 was Ryan Phillips. Now, nothing super duper special here. Okay, he was a linebacker, but he played 4 seasons with the Giants from 1997 to 2000. His final season was in 2001 with the Colts. But he was the Giants' starting linebacker in 1990 and in 2000. He started 16 games for the Giants in 99 and 15 games in 2000. So wasn't a phenomenal player, but he had a 5-year career for him with the Giants, right? And he was the third round pick. But this next one, even Ike Hilliard played 12 seasons, Tiki Barber played 10, but this next pick with their compensatory pick, all right, this guy played even more seasons than Tiki Barber and Ike Hilliard did. Brad Maynard. They took in the third round, they took a punter, okay, from Ball State. Oh, yeah. He played from 1997 to 2001. I know he obviously played with the Giants. I know he played with the Bears as well, too. Okay, yeah. I mean, the Giants had him for 4 seasons. After 2000, I'm not sure if he left. They didn't re-sign him, whatever it was. I'm not exactly sure, but he played out his contract, and he wound up playing with the Bears. So he was the Bears punter from 2001 until 2011. I'm sorry, from 2001 to 2010. 2011, he was Cleveland's punter. Okay. So, I mean, he had a 15-year career. So it was a very, very good pick. Unfortunately, he only played 4 of his 15 seasons with the Giants, but a very good pick. Then the Giants in the 4th round, they took Pete Monty, another linebacker. He's from Wisconsin. Right, he played from 1997 to 2001. So he had quite a few years under his belt. He played 5 seasons in the NFL. 4 of the 5 were with the Giants. He played from 1997 to 2000. Now, basically, he was pretty much, I guess, he was a linebacker. I guess pretty much maybe on the special teams, because he played in a lot of games. He only started in 5 games. Oh, my bad. He only started in 4 games for the Giants in those 4 years. His final season was in 2001. He played with Minnesota. He played 6 games for Minnesota. So after 2001, his career was over. All right. Then, I mean, it's once again another good pick. I mean, this time was in the 5th round. They took Sam Garnes, a defensive back from Cincinnati. Okay, now he played from 1997 to 2003, 7 seasons. All right, and from 1997 to 2001 was with the Giants. He finished up his career in 2000 and 2003 playing for the Jets, but he was a strong safety. Okay. He was pretty much the Giants' strong safety from 1997 to 2001. He missed 1998. Looks like he missed like 5 games, I guess maybe due to injury. But I mean, other than that, it was, pretty just solid. Yeah. What did he have? Yeah, he had 6 interceptions for the Giants in 5 seasons. Nothing super crazy, but a lot of tackles. Actually, his final is weird. I don't know what happened to him. If he got injured, exactly what, that I'm not sure. But his final season with the New York Jets, he was their starting safety. He played in all 16 games, started in all 16 of them. He had 2 interceptions, and he wound up with 100 combined tackles. Now, that's telling me that maybe he was injured or something. I mean, I'm not sure how you'd wind up having 100 combined tackles in your final season, play all 16 games as a starter, this, that, and you never played ever again. So that I'm not sure of. But once again, a very good, solid pick for the Giants. And obviously he was in the fifth round. Great pick in the fifth round. Then the Giants and the last two guys were just nothing super special. They took Mike Cherry from Murray State, a quarterback. He only played 2 seasons in the NFL. They took him in the 6th round. And let's see. They were both with the Giants. What did he have here? 4 attempts, 0 rushing. Yeah, so it looked like he didn't throw any passes at all. So he was just a backup. Just a backup. He played 2 seasons in 1997, 1998, and that was it. Their final pick was, looks like Matt Kenelev from USC. He's a defensive tackle. Kennelly. Mike Kennelly, I'm going to say. From defensive tackle from USC. Now, he played 1 season. Actually, it was 1999. He played 1 season with San Francisco. He played in 7 games. He didn't start any. So his career was rather short, but he never played with the Giants. Okay. But, I mean, all in all, wound up being a very, very good draft. I mean, when you get Ike Hilliard, Tiki Barber, and Sam Garnes, very, very good pick. And I said you throw Brad Maynard in there, who had a 15-year career. Ryan Phillips and Pete Monty, 2 linebackers, nothing super spectacular, but both had 5-year careers. A very good draft indeed for if it was the swan song, I guess, as they say, for George Young. I guess his final draft wound up being a pretty good one. So, and it certainly helped the Giants going forward. That's certainly for sure. Let's see. What does Wikipedia say about the 1997 season? Doesn't say a whole heck of a lot here. It's a short one. It's a short one. Teddy's in the house. What do we got? Yep, good old Ed McCaffrey. You gotta love him. Gotta love him. My daughter was born during the 4th quarter of the Bengals versus the Cowboys game when Bill Parcells exploded and quit coaching. Wow. He drafted Ed McCaffrey. Yep, good old Ed McCaffrey. Gotta love him. You gotta love him. But Wikipedia doesn't have too much here about the Giants. This is 1997. Was the New York Giants' 73rd season in the National Football League, and the first season under new head coach Jim Fossil, who replaced Dan Reeves after 4 seasons. The Giants improved upon their previous season's output of 6-10. They managed a record in 1997 of 10-5-1. The Giants' best mark since 1993, and they won the NFC East for the first time since their 1990 Super Bowl season. Despite winning the division, the title, and earning a home playoff game, the Giants were eliminated in the wild card game by the Minnesota Vikings. Yeah, this is one that, I mean, Jim Fossil, had some exciting moments, exciting seasons, this, that, and the other thing, but he had probably the 2 most gut-wrenching, want to just take a fork and jab it in your eye and just pull you, oh my God, ungodly. Just sick to your stomach playoff losses, and probably in the history of the New York Giants. 2002, they were beating the 49ers by like 3,000 points, and they blew the lead. And then this one here, when they were up by 9 points with about like 5 minutes to go, 4 or 5 minutes to go, and they let the Vikings score 2 times. I think the Vikings scored, then they recovered an onside kick, and they kicked the field. Just unbelievable. The Giants were up 19-3 at halftime, and they scored 1 field goal in the second half, and the Vikings just kept coming back and scoring and scoring and scoring. The Giants kept the Vikings around and wound up biting them in the rear end. So, I mean, it's just gut-wrenching, absolutely gut-wrenching. But the 1997 season here, all right, I mean, all in all, it was the defense, the offense was nothing super spectacular, but the defense once again did very, very well. The defense gave up 16.6 points a game, which was 3rd in the entire NFL. They averaged only 19.2 points a game, which was 21st. So once again, their offense was nothing super spectacular. The defense kept them in. Dave Brown and Danny Canal with the quarterbacks. Danny Kanell started 10 games. He was 7-2-1. And Dave Brown was 3-3. So Danny Kanell completed 53.1% of his pass. I mean, it was not these guys are backup quarterbacks, So I mean, for them to have a record of 10-5-1 with two backup quarterbacks is pretty impressive. Danny Kanell threw 11 touchdowns. He threw 9 interceptions. Dave Brown had 5 touchdown passes and 3 interceptions. So as a team, they had 16 touchdown passes and 12 interceptions. But on the defensive side, their defense only gave up 10 passing touchdowns all season long, and they had 27 interceptions. And also on top of that, I mean, this year they really picked up the sacks. This year they had, what was it? Where were we at here? They had 54 sacks, and he only gave up 32. So what did Michael have? Robert Harris, remember him? Yeah, he had 10 sacks. Michael had 14 sacks. Michael's first year, he really picked it up. Michael was went to the Pro Bowl and was an all pro. First team all pro. So he had a fantastic season. But I mean, it was like, I think this was the last season for Rodney Hampton because he was wearing down. He had 23 carries for 81 yards. He averaged 3.5 yards a carry. The Giants as a team only averaged 3.8 yards a carry. But once again, the Giants defense only gave up 3.4 yards a carry. Very, very stingy. The Giants had 1,988 yards rushing, so they averaged about 124 yards a game, but their defense only gave up 90 yards a game rushing the ball. Their defense was very, very good this season. Tyrone Wheatley led the team with 580. Oh, no, my bad. He had 583 yards. Charles Way, I liked him. Sorry, very sorry when he started getting, I think it was the knee injuries, which wound up cutting his career short, way short. He led the team with 698 yards. But Tyrone Wheatley had 583. Tiki Barber had 511 yards. So, I mean, everybody pitched in, right? So as a total, they had 1,988 total yards rushing. So once again, nothing super spectacular, but their defense being as good as it was, it got the job done. Who do we got here? Chris Callaway led the team with 58 receptions, but other than that, I mean, as far as wide receivers, right? Dave Patton had 13 receptions. Howard Cross had 21. The tight end. Kevin Alexander had 18 receptions. Amani Toomer had 16 receptions. Aaron Pierce, the tight end, had 10. Thomas Lewis, this was his final season. He was the Giants' first-round selection in 1994, and in 1997 was his final season in the league. He had 5 catches. He was their first-round pick, and he had 5 catches in 1997. Just horrible. And then Ike Hilliard. I mean, it just goes to show. It's like, he played in 2 games. He started 2 games. And he had 2 catches. But, I mean, you figure he starts in 2 games. If he's your first-round selection, I mean, you kind of would hope that he would get more than catches than just 2. But that's all he had was 2 catches. So it is what it is. But I mean, they didn't have a lot of rushing yards, and they averaged 124 yards a game rushing. But I mean, didn't have a lot of pay. I mean, as I said, Chris Callaway led the team with 58 receptions. Yeah, so I mean, just was nothing super duper spectacular. Let's see, Brad Delwaso, he was the kicker. He was 22 out of 32 on field goals. Nothing super spectacular. Brad Maynard, he was there. He was their punter. As I said, we got Michael Strahan led the team with 14 sacks. Robert Harris, he had 10 sacks. As a team, they did very, very well this season. They had 54 sacks as a team. I mean, very, very well. So let's go over their games here. All right. And it just goes to show you how times have kind of changed and all. This year in 1997, they played their first game of the season. Actually, was in August. Sunday, August 31st, they played the Philadelphia Eagles at home, and they would win 31-17. Nice way to start off the season. The following, then they would, then they lost their next 3, and then after that, they really kind of went on a roll after that. So they lost to Jacksonville. Okay, and Tom Coughlin, he beat them 40-13 the following week. That was in Jacksonville. Then the following week, the Giants would come home and play the Baltimore Ravens, and they would lose 24-23 to the Ravens. And I think the Giants here had the lead, right? Let's see, what do we got? Yeah, the Giants had a 23-14 lead in the fourth quarter, and the Ravens scored 2 times, and they scored a touchdown. Actually, Michael Jackson had a touchdown reception. Who knew, right? And then Matt Stover kicked the game-winning field goal, and they wound up winning 24-23. And actually, the Giants drafted Matt Stover. Go figure. So then the fourth game of the season, the Giants played in St. Louis against the Rams. They lost 13-3. So now the Giants are 1-3. Now it's not looking too good. However, that's why you play the games. That's why it's 16 games long and on. They just turned everything around. They started against the New Orleans Saints. They played them on Sunday, September 28th at home against the Saints. They won 14-9. Now the Giants are 2-3. Then the Giants at home against the Cowboys the following week. They would win another tight, close game, 20-17. Now the Giants are back to 500. Okay. Then the following week, the Giants played in Arizona against the Cardinals on the road, and they would win 27-13. So now the Giants are 4-3. Another close win this time the following week in Detroit in overtime. The Giants would win 26-20, pushing their record to 5-3. The following week, the Giants won another tough, close one against the Cincinnati Bengals at home. They won 29-27. So now the Giants are 6-3. The Giants had a bye week, and then the following week in Tennessee, the Giants would lose 10-6. Defense kept them in the game. Just the offense was just not really didn't have much going for it. So they only scored 6 points. So the Giants lost, and now the Giants are 6-4. Following week, the Giants would play home against Arizona. Once again, the defense did very well. The Giants would win 19-10. So now the Giants are 7-4. So this is where the tie comes in at, because the Giants finished 10-5-1. So this is where the tie comes in at. The Giants tied the Washington Redskins in Washington 7-7. Right. I think it was Gus Frerotte. I just want to make sure here before I go kind of. Let's see here. I want to make sure it was him. Right. Let me make sure here. Yep. Yeah. This is when the Giants had to face Jeff Hostetler. Gus Frerotte. He in the second quarter, he ran in a 1-yard carry to give Washington the lead. They put him up 7-0 in the second quarter. Well, he celebrated. I don't know. I've never seen this before, and I don't think I've ever seen it done again, and hopefully nobody ever does it. He celebrated his touchdown by headbutting the wall behind like the end zone. And I guess that the wall was padded, but it must have had something, the concrete or whatever it was behind it. So for some reason, he headbutted it. And after he headbutted, he started holding his head like this. I think he gave himself a concussion. And I'm not sure. I don't think he returned to the game after that, because Jeff Hostetler came in and wound up leading the attack. I mean, wow. Did they throw that many passes? Wow, my God. Wow. I mean, Washington, well, this included overtime too, so we got to remember that. But Washington threw 60 passes in that game. They had no touchdown passes. They had 3 interceptions. But Jeff Hostetler was the quarterback for that game. So the Giants did play Jeff Hostetler against Jeff Hostetler. So the Giants tied it up in the third quarter. Chris Callaway caught a 4-yard touchdown pass from Danny Cannell to tie it up at 7. And there was no more scoring for the rest of the game. It was obviously, which included overtime as well, too. So the Giants, tied him 7-7. Gus Frerotte headbutts the wall, knocks himself out, gives himself a concussion, whatever. And the Giants wound up, it was against Jeff Hostetler. So that's where the Giants got their tie at. It was it a Sunday night game or a Monday night game? What was it? Sunday. It was a Sunday night game at 8 o'clock. Yes, it was a Sunday night game. So now the Giants are 7-4-1. Then they would get their final loss of the season against Tampa Bay. They at home against the Buccaneers. They lose 20-8. Once again, defense didn't do too bad. The offense couldn't score any points. I mean, the Giants, scored 6 points. Then they scored 19. Then they scored 7 points. Then they scored 8 points. I mean, the 3 out of 4 games they did not do a very good job of scoring points. And of course, those the single digit point games that when they scored 6, 7, and 8, they didn't win any of those games. So, but then after that, the Giants would wind up winning the final 3 games. They in Philadelphia on the road, they played the Eagles and they beat them 31-21. Now the Giants are 8-5-1. Then the final game, the Giants play as at home. Was this the Haas? They played him too. The Hostetler play here. So the Giants played at home against the Washington Redskins, second to last game of the season, and Jeff Hostetler played. Yeah, he was 23 out of 42 for 288 yards. He had 4 interceptions. So he threw a lot of interceptions when he played against the Giants. I guess he was trying to prove a point or whatever it was and try to beat him too badly or whatever it was, and he threw a lot of interceptions. So the Giants wound up beating him 30-10. And actually, I think was it? Let me see here. Yeah. Jeff, he threw 4 interceptions. I think his final interception, Jason Sehorn picked it off and ran it back 35 yards for a touchdown to make the final score 30-10. So the Giants, got the better of Jeff Hostetler. So now the Giants, after the Giants won their second to last game of the season, they were 9-5-1. Now let me see here. Nope. Let me see here. One thing real fast there. Okay, so after the Giants were 9-5-1, looks pretty much like they had wrapped everything up because in second place was none of the other teams. Well, Washington had a record of 8-7-1, but all the other teams had losing records. The Eagles were 6-9, 6-9-1. The Cowboys were 6-10, and the Cardinals were 4-12. So it was not a very powerful division that season in 1997, which is one of the reasons why it certainly helped the Giants wind up winning the division that year with a record of 10-5-1. So the final game of the season for the Giants, was in Dallas, and they would win 20-7, making the Giants record 10-5-1. Now this is for the Cowboys, and they actually had a losing record. I mean, which wound up being rather big because you figure in 1992, 93, and in 95 they won the Super Bowl. So 2 seasons after 1995, when they won the Super Bowl, they wound up they were 6-10. So they started kind of going downhill after that. I know Michael Irvin, he got injured and he wasn't able to play anymore. So times were changing. But so that led the Giants to their the wild card. Now we'll go over this here. They won the division, but they were still a wild card, and unfortunately, there was the absolute gut wrenching loss that they had. So let's go over this here in the 1997 season. The 1990 NFL season was the 78th regular season in the history of the National Football League. The Oilers relocated from Houston, Texas to Nashville, Tennessee. The newly renamed Tennessee Oilers played their home games during the season at the Liberty Bowl Memorial Stadium in Memphis, Tennessee, while construction of a new stadium in Nashville started. Houston would rejoin the NFL with the expansion Texans in 2002. Due to Game 7 of the 1997 World Series, the Chicago Bears-Miami Dolphins game at Pro Players Stadium was delayed one day till Monday, October 27th. The season ended with Super Bowl when the Denver Broncos, which was a very, very, very good Super Bowl. I have to admit that. When the Broncos beat the Packers 31-24 at Qualcomm Stadium. This broke the National Football Conference streak of 13 consecutive Super Bowl victories. The last American Football Conference win was having the Los Angeles Raiders when they beat the Redskins after the 83 season, because in 84 was the 49ers, 85 was the Bears, 86 was the Giants, 87 was the Redskins, 88 and 89 was the 49ers, 1990 was the Giants, 1991 was back to the Redskins, 92 and 93 was the Cowboys, 94 was the 49ers, 95 was the Cowboys, and 1996 was the Green Bay Packers. So 13 consecutive NFC teams won the Super Bowl. That's a heck of a streak. Heck of a streak. And I believe I'm not mistaken, I think the Packers were favored in the Super Bowl, but the Broncos wound up doing them in. So we got, let's see, let's go over the AFC first here, okay? So in the AFC East, the New England Patriots won with a record of 10-6. Miami Dolphins had a record of 9-7, so they were one of the wild cards. In the AFC Central, the Steelers won with a record of 11-5. But they were tied with the Jaguars, who had a record of 11-5. But Pittsburgh finished ahead of Jacksonville in the AFC Central based on a better net division points. Wow. Interesting. Never heard that one before. They had 78 division points to the Jaguars 23. So I've never heard that before, but it is what it is. AFC West, the Kansas City Chiefs won with a record of 13-3, and the Denver Broncos were the third wild card. They had a record of 12-4. So in the AFC playoffs, in the wild card, Denver beat Jacksonville 42-17, and New England beat Miami 17-3. So in the divisional round, Denver went to Kansas City, and in Arrowhead Stadium, Denver beat Kansas City 14-10. At Three Rivers Stadium, Pittsburgh beat New England 7-6. Whew, what a barn burner. Setting up the championship game. Okay, well, Denver wound up beating Pittsburgh 24-21 in the championship game, sending Denver, obviously, to the Super Bowl. So now let's go to the NFC, right? The Giants were 10-5-1. Okay, they won a division, but they had to wind up playing in the wild card round because the Green Bay Packers had a record of 13-3, winning the NFC Central, and the 49ers in the NFC West had a record of 13-3 as well too. So the Giants had the worst record of the three division leaders. So in the NFC Central, this is one of those weird things. 4 teams from the NFC Central made the playoffs. The Packers won with a record of 13-3. Tampa Bay came in second place with a record of 10-6. So they were one wild card team. The Detroit Lions and the Minnesota Vikings both finished 9-7. So they were the second and third wild card team. So 3 wild card teams came from the NFC Central. 4 out of 5 teams went to the playoffs in the NFC Central. And then the NFC West, the San Francisco 49ers were 13-3, and they won that. Okay, so in the playoffs, the wild card, Tampa Bay beat Detroit 20-10, and Minnesota beat the Giants 23-20. Then it said the Giants. This was I mean, it really looked really promising in the beginning, of this game. The Giants were up, I think it was 19-3 at halftime. Right. What we got here? Then the Vikings scored, 1 touchdown in the third quarter, okay, to close it to 19-10, but still a 2-score lead. Still 2-score lead. All right. Then the Eddie Murray would kick a field goal to make it 19-13, so get the Vikings within 6 points, all right? But then the Giants would respond. Brad Delwiso kicked a 22-yard field goal to make it 22-13. So now the Giants are up by 9 points, obviously 2-score game. And I always remember this, and I always remember I was saying this to myself and all. The Vikings had the ball, and they had the ball like around the Giants' 40-yard line, somewhere around there, 40, 45-yard line, somewhere around there. And, they're down by 2 scores. The clock was ticking, and they're like huddling up, and And I remember when they broke they break their huddle, they were just kind of like moseying up to the line of scrimmage, and I'm like, and Randall Cunningham was calling the plays and all of that and everything, and he was just moseying up to the line of scrimmage, and I'm saying, don't you know you're down by 2 scores? It's like, what are you doing? I mean, the clock's ticking. You need 2 scores. What are you doing? Well, then, Jake Reed caught a 30-yard touchdown pass from Randall Cunningham, and then they would try an onside kick. They recovered it, and then they would kick a 24-yard field goal. Eddie Murray would kick a 24-yard field goal, and the Vikings would wind up winning 23-22. They gave up 10 points in the final, I was going to say, 3 or 4 minutes of the game. I mean, it was just gut-wrenching, absolutely just gut-wrenching. It was just, man, it was just, I mean, you're up 19-3 at halftime, and in the whole second half, all they scored was a field goal. It's tough, very, very tough, very tough. I mean, once again, a very successful season, going 10-5-1, right? It just the playoff loss just kind of soured it a little bit. You know what I mean? But so that sent the Minnesota Vikings to the divisional round, right? So in the divisional round, Green Bay beat Tampa Bay 21-7. And at 3Com Park in San Francisco, the 49ers would beat Minnesota 38-22, setting up a championship game between the Packers and the 49ers. The Packers would win 23-10, sending the Packers to the Super Bowl. Now, it wound up being a very, very good Super Bowl. What do we got? Let's go down here. It's all the way down here. What do we got here? It was kind of like back and forth. Antonio Freeman had a 22-yard touchdown reception, put Green Bay up 7-0. Then Terrell Davis with a 1-yard touchdown run with time up 7-7. Then John Elway had a 1-yard touchdown run, putting Denver up 14-7. Then Elam kicked a 51-yard field goal for Denver, putting Denver up 17-7. Then Mark Chmura had a 6-yard touchdown reception from Brett Favre, making it 17-14. And then Longwell kicked a 27-yard field goal for Green Bay in the third quarter, making it 17-17. Then Terrell Davis had a 1-yard touchdown run for the Broncos, making it score 24-17 Denver. And then Freeman had a 13-yard touchdown reception from Brett Favre, tying the score up at 24-24. And then Denver responded with Davis scored his third touchdown of the game with 1-yard touchdown run, and put Denver up 31-24. Then the Packers got the ball back, and with a minute 45 to go, Denver scored to make it 31-24. But Brett Favre got the ball back, okay, and he had time. He had time, okay, to try to do something. But obviously they needed a touchdown. But let's see here. The Packers attempted one final drive to try to tie the game before the end of the regulation and send the contest into overtime. Shanahan famously instructed his defensive coordinators to keep playing the same blitzing defenses they've done throughout the game as Green Bay attempted to drive downfield in the final 2 minutes. Rather than playing prevent defense, Freeman returned the Broncos kickoff 22 yards to the 30-yard line. On the very first play of the drive, the Packers advanced to the Broncos' 48-yard line with a 22-yard screen pass to Levens, leaving them in Broncos territory with 1 minute 30 seconds still remaining in the game and 2 timeouts left. But following the first pass, rather than use one of their timeouts, the Packers hurried to the line of scrimmage and ran a second consecutive screen pass to Levens. The pass was complete, but Levens was stopped for no gain. The play cost the Packers 19 seconds, leaving 1:11 on the game clock and also forcing the Packers to take one of their final 2 timeouts. On the next play, Favre completed another pass to Levens. Levens picked up 13 yards and was able to run out of bounds, stopping the clock with 1:04 left in the game. The Packers had 1st and 10 at the Broncos' 35-yard line. So it was a very exciting game right down to the end. And they still had 1 timeout remaining. The Broncos defense would stop the Packers on the next 4 downs. On the first down play, Favre completed a 4-yard pass to Levens, but he was stopped inbounds. The Packers hurried to the line, but 20 seconds ran off before Favre could attempt a second pass. On second down, Favre attempted a pass downfield that hit receiver Antonio Freeman in both hands and the chest at the Broncos 15, but Freeman could not handle the ball. Whew. The incomplete pass stopped the clock, but left the Packers with 3rd and 6 and now only 37 seconds remaining. On third down, Favre intended the pass for receiver Robert Brooks, covered by Denver's Randy Hilliard, but both were hit by Atwater at the pass as the pass was incomplete. All 3 players were knocked out of the game because of the NFL rules regarding injuries to players in the final 2 minutes of a game. Both teams were charged a timeout since players on both teams were injured and needed to be tended to. So now the Packers didn't have a timeout left. So this left the Packers facing 4th and 6 with the ball on the Broncos' 31-yard line with no timeouts left and the clock stopped with 32 seconds remaining. On 4th down, Denver linebacker John Mobley broke up a pass intended for Chimera, enabling the Broncos to take the ball back and run out the clock for the victory. So it was a very exciting, Super Bowl right down to the end. Desmond Howard MVP. 1997 is where we forgot about Randall Cunningham. Oh yeah, Randall he had a good season. That was for sure. Don't forget about Randall Cunningham. Absolutely. Oh, I mean, he came back. I mean, he was with the Vikings. He had a couple good seasons with the Vikings. He showed what a stud he still was. He still had it, and they surrounded him with some good weapons, and he took advantage of that. He was a very good quarterback. Very good quarterback. I mean, what an athlete. What an athlete. The guy could punt. He could throw the ball a country mile. He was a heck of an athlete. Absolutely. But that Super Bowl was very, very, it was very close, back and forth, came down to the last final drive of the game just to tie it up, maybe see it go into overtime. Fantastic game. But that gave Denver their first ever Super Bowl victory. And that was John Elway's first. And their owner, when he took the Super Bowl trophy, the Lombardi trophy, I can't remember what the owner's name was, but he famously went into the microphone and he had the Super Bowl trophy. He said, "This one's for John," and he went and handed it to John Elway because John Elway had been there 3 other times and lost them all. So this was John Elway's 4th Super Bowl appearance, and he finally got his first victory. They would go back to the Super Bowl the following season in 1998. And play the Falcons, and they would beat the Falcons. And, of course, the Falcons were being coached by who? Dan Reeves, who had just got fired by the Giants. So go figure. But, so the Broncos would go back to the Super Bowl in 1998. And so John Elway would go to his 5th Super Bowl in 1998. They would get a second win, and he was just like John Wayne. He just get on his horse, ride off into the sunset, never play another down in the NFL after that. So he finished back-to-back Super Bowl victories. In 1998, the Broncos were very, very good. But so the Giants and the Broncos would butt heads in 1998 and have a very, very special game. Very special game. But then we'll talk about that tomorrow night. But that pretty much wraps up the 1997 season for the Giants. It was, that once again, their offense, they did not have any super spectacular weapons. Nothing. They get Ike Hilliard. Okay, they had Amani Toomer, and they did have Tiki Barber, but these guys weren't really coming of age yet. All right, they had backup quarterbacks in there trying to run the offense. Nothing. They had a good, solid defense, but I mean, their offense was nothing super spectacular. As I said, but for first-year coach Jim Fassel, after 2 consecutive losing seasons in 1995 and 96, Jim Fassel in one season took the Giants to a 10-5-1 record, right? Got them to win the division, got them to the playoffs. It was one of the most gut-wrenching playoff losses ever, but it was a very successful season. Very, very successful season for the Giants and Coach Jim Fassel in his debut season. Very successful. Unfortunately, 1998-99 wouldn't quite be the same, but This is 1997, and it was a good year for the New York Giants. Well, I said that pretty much wraps up the 1997 season for the New York Giants. I'll be back again tomorrow night with the 1998 season, the New York Giants, which just happened to be the 74th season in the history of the New York Giants. I'll see you then.